thing about LEDs that we lost moving from incandescent was you don't get that warmer tones as you dim the lights.
It turns kind of blue.
It looks blue to you, but it's staying the same Kelvin as you dim.
I see.
And it just feels unnatural. We're used to, dimming down to candle color, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then we take that simple LED fixture and we add warm dim to it. And then as you dim the light down, it will get warmer and temperature kind of more setting a comfortable mood. So that's more of a mechanical way of achieving, mimicking what we're used to with incandescent lamps.
Welcome to the Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. I'm with Lance Anderson with Admit One. Welcome, Lance.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. For those that don't know who Lance is, he owns Admit One. They're a low voltage technology company here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I think your office is actually in Edina, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Barely. We're on the edge. Obviously, as a custom home builder, we work a lot with audio visual in our custom homes. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your company's position in the Minnesota market and a little bit of how you became an owner and your journey?
Yeah. Man, that's there's a lot there.
Yeah. Well, good.
It's hard to believe that we've been at this for 21 years now. And so it's basically, the only job that I know. I mean, I was in IT, back before starting this business or when it was fostering, working at Best Buy, call myself a blue shirter. There's a few other, most of us come from either Best Buy or the old days of Audio King or Circuit City.
Sure. Best
Buy being the blue shirt. So I was a blue shirter. And I was going to school in computers up in Duluth and just started in the tech bench.
Yeah.
What's now known as Geek Squad, I guess, working on computers. And they realized I could sell stuff, so they put me out to the sales floor. I think it started in audio first, and that's, I think, where the passion really started for this business. In this category, in these homes, what was really nothing more than audio and video back then, and we've morphed into, such a much bigger category, I guess, in people's lives and homes. But so that was where the passion began, and I ended up doing a small project for my brother-in-law just while I was in school and while I was at Best Buy, taking advantage of some of the discounts I may have had access to. And he's like, you got to do this for a living. You're so passionate about it. And I was, 21 years old. I'm like, business, like, I don't know how to do this, So he's like, he was a serial entrepreneur at the time, and he's like, yeah, I'll give you a hand. I'll get you started. And that's kind of how we started working out of his basement, in the project that I executed for him when I was at Best Buy. And, I was still doing IT work from, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and running a crew, during the day and selling at night, basically, and on the weekends to my clients. And we really were focused on the end consumer at first. So lots of marketing, spent a lot of dollars marketing because we were young and new, and there was really some big players in the market at the time that were selling to builders like yourself. And so again, a lot of our revenue came from direct marketing in those early days. And
now, using your obviously relationship with Best Buy early on, did you leverage that with your company, or did you start going to manufacturers directly?
Yeah,
just your exposure at that point in time.
Yeah, there was a lot of conflict of interest there.
Right. Yeah.
So the Best Buy career was short lived. I mean, I moved after school. I moved back here. I guess the idea fostered in those days of Best Buy.
Yeah.
And then I moved back here and finished up school and worked for an IT company. I'm sorry if that wasn't clear, but I worked for a Fortune 500 company running their computer hardware systems while I was fostering Admit One.
Got that.
On the side.
I love your name. What was the origin, or why'd you choose that? So it sounds like you had that from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the best. It's a great name.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, for me, just because without you letting me bias it, when I think of Admit One, I think of like a movie ticket.
Yes,
like
exactly.
Admit One. And I mean, I've seen it on your logos as well in the past. And I just think it's very clever play on words and emotions. People can identify with it. Yep. How did you come up with it, or how did it foster?
Literally from the ticket. Yeah. And that was our first logo was a picture of a movie, like the old school lunch movie ticket looking thing. And
the little perforated edges all around
exactly.
You rip it off like a carnival.
Yeah, and we've morphed. The logo's morphed quite a bit from there, but yeah, that's where we.
The latest
started.
one, I think you had it on your because you do great merchandising. I like swag. Yeah, and for those watching on our YouTube channel, he's got it tattooed on his wrist here.
Yeah.
And we have mutual blue colored shirts, so I guess we're still in the blue twinning. And but anyway, the name is phenomenal. So I always like interesting names. And the reason I bring it up now is we've recently discussed about rebranding Mark D. Williams Custom Homes. For me, unlike you, my company name when I started is myself. And I think about, long term, 20 years from now, if I'm going to sell the company, it's hard to sell a company with your own name on it. But, ultimately, I am kind of the company. I don't have a lot of physical assets. Where Admit One, you have an amazing infrastructure, and I have a personal relationship with you. For those listening, the first time I met you was going mountain biking.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, we've mountain biked a few times. We need to do it some more. But I think Ross Agnello was kind of our mutual contact over at All Inc.
For sure.
And he's coming on the show later as
right
well.
on.
So anyway, he'll be a hoot to talk with. But we'll get into some personal stuff at a later date. So,
but yeah, the branding side of it, like we went through that whole thing too, because the like I was mentioning, audio and video is really where this industry was 20 years ago. Like it was TVs, some distributed audio throughout your house, and hopefully, in our case, a media room or a theater. And it really changed. It's changed a lot. So the movie ticket became, and the name became less applicable to what we were doing. So I'm glad to hear that there's still some cleverness left there, but we had to change the logo and the brand a lot, and simply just go by like more of an AO branding, and moved away from the movie ticket. And we've had a couple other logos since, but I'm like completely in love with our branding now, and I'm glad we made that change that we did, because it's the first time really that I, find myself being merched out. Like I was kind of the last guy to be like, wearing the brand everywhere, but literally have it tattooed on me. I'm wearing a hat right now that's got our brand on it. I usually have like a Lululemon with, AO on it. I can't get enough of it. And so it's a brand that I'm proud of, or the mark that I'm proud of. I'm all of it. So
that's cool. And when I first met you, you had a camouflage AO on.
Yeah.
And I remember I'm a big tennis player, and AO stands for Australian Open.
That's right.
And when I saw it, I was like, oh, is he a tennis player?
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what your company name was when we were out mountain biking. And I was like, that is super sick. I want that hat.
Yeah.
And, but you have great marketing. And as someone who's in marketing, even though we build homes, I love merchandising. I love branding. And for a long time, I felt the same way. The last thing I want to do, like I would give it to my staff and people that work for me. But the idea that I would wear my name on myself always seemed like the Geek Squad. Like I didn't want, it just felt weird to me. It's like, do business owners really wear? I'd wear nicer clothes if it will. So I'm like, well, how about you buy nicer clothes and get a cooler logo?
That's kind of what we started doing. Yeah.
And then you'll actually want to wear
it. Yeah. So I would encourage that.
Yeah.
And it's nice to represent a little bit more, and even in a subtler way, and that's why I like the simplified AO is.
And people often, I bet people ask a lot too.
Well, especially when they see it tatted on me and a hat on, they're like, "What is this brand?" It's the first time I've been approached about the brand a lot. So
have you had anyone else get it tattooed on them?
Yeah,
really? Really?
Well, for like to any of my employees, it seems a little bit like Yellowstone, the TV series. But I've offered to any of the employees, if they want the tattoo, we would pay for it. But my partners, Kristen and Andy, John is pending. Both have our brand on them too. So they're new partners in the last year here. So it was kind of a christening.
Is it going to be awkward when you tell them you're actually changing the brand next year after that?
I think what we talked about maybe doing, at least on me, was putting the legacy brands on it too. So we can just continue.
Yeah, you'll have like a sleeve.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's commitment.
Yeah.
That's commitment. You had mentioned previously just about how much the technology has changed. Where has it gone? Just as I'm a custom home builder in Minnesota, and you work with a lot of them. I see you around all the time. What have you seen in terms of technology changes from what people usually think of TVs, audio, movie theater? Because for us anyway, at the price range, we're $1.5 million to $5 million. I actually have only ever done one dedicated theater. Not that the clientele can't afford it or not want it. It's mainly just like their lifestyle is more the open rec room. It
Yeah.
seems like the dedicated theater.
Yeah, we're seeing more media rooms these days.
You are.
Yeah, for sure.
What about, I mean, I'm interested in like the home automation,
Yeah.
the control package. I think we'll get into that, but tell me a little bit about how the journey of your technology as what it was
Yeah.
to what it is now. And then I'll follow up later of where do you think it's going to be 5 years from now?
It's been an interesting ride. And for me, it's come full circle, because of my background being in IT, and it was kind of a degree I thought and CAD work, by the way, because I was in a little bit of engineering, CAD drafting before IT. But I thought I was throwing those degrees away. And turns out, shortly after we start this business, it starts to change into more, automation and control and security, and all this stuff resides on the network and, Wi-Fi. And it just really came full circle. And literally when someone asks what we do, besides categorically, we work in the luxury residential market, is any technology within the house, short of the actual computer. And we facilitate the computer. We just don't remove viruses from your computer and manage that, but literally everything else that has to do with technology in that house. So it went from audio and video and media rooms to, security. Camera systems are a big thing these days. Security, like I said, lighting control at first. Mm-hmm. So just simply, automating and turning on lights throughout the house, and simplifying the lights throughout the house. Mm-hmm. And now, more recently, one of the verticals is lighting fixture sales. The lighting fixture itself is evolved so much, and it's really, if we're not already seeing it, in the building market, you're definitely going to hear a lot about it going forward. But there's so much more sophistication with lighting these days that it kind of fits really nicely within our, scope of work that we're already executing in these houses. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I can talk for hours on lights and how they, I think, have a big impact on how we use our homes, how our homes look, how they make our bodies feel. All of it is pretty powerful stuff.
It's funny you mentioned about how you feel. I was going to bring this up, and I know you guys have worked on this before. You have more knowledge than I will, but I did a tour recently of a lighting company and distributor, and they were talking about the temperature settings of the lighting, and we're in Minnesota for those that live here, but maybe there's people out of state. Obviously, it gets darker here, November through March,
right?
And but they're having the basically copying where the sun would be,
exactly,
and your circadian rhythm matching it from the beginning you wake up throughout the day.
Exactly.
And maybe you can speak a little bit, because I think it's fascinating technology. We can talk a little bit about what kind of cost implications this has, but from a straight technology standpoint, and you would know this, what I don't even know, but when you flip on a light in a normal house, the incandescent light bulb is, what was the Kelvin temperature of that?
2,700 lumens.
And like an LED, you can adjust to any one you want, right?
Right.
And what does the human body like, or is each person different?
Right. And I think as we've evolved as humans, just generally speaking, the color of the light outside tells us it's just telling our body what we're supposed to be doing. And the beginning and the end of the days are warmer. We're waking up slow, and then we get to high noon, and it's bluer light, and it gives us more energy. And this is when we're supposed to be working. Whatever that means, it's where we're most productive. And then it starts to get warmer towards the end of the day. It's time to wind down. We go to sleep. We see a lot of studies and devices. Even my iPhone now has, the what do they call it? The day shift, or where the device looks less blue at night, so we can sleep quicker or easier. Yeah. And that's kind of, the principle it's all based around. And then you can disrupt that too purposefully. And the example I can give is, we had a client on the lake on the west side of town here, and worked with Singapore a lot, and needed to be on conference calls in the middle of the night. And so could tune his house and his lighting to, one, give the perception that he was actually in the same time zone of whom he's meeting with, but two, really energize his body and went as far as like putting in a faux skylight into that space so that the perception is that your body is interpreting the time of day is different than what it really is. And so it's kind of powerful stuff.
I went through that home. Was that home on tour?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know the builder pretty well, and
Yeah.
as you know as well. And he's coming on the show actually in
Yeah.
a month or two.
Ask him about it.
I will. Well, he told me it was in by a crane,
Yeah.
and he told me that, it was like the way I do
From
it.
Italy.
Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't it come from
Yeah.
Italy? And I mean, all our hardware comes from Austria. It's like, do we generate anything here? And but I was fascinated. I was blown away. That was kind of the first I'd heard of even something like that.
Yeah.
Now, who out of curiosity on that particular project, is that something the architect found? Is that something you found? How does the origin story of that light fixture that essentially simulates? Could it actually simulate sunlight? I mean, did it actually have solar radiation in it or not?
You would think, you would be convinced that it did.
Okay.
Just because your body reacts to it. The product's called Colux, and it has a projection system in it, like think of a home theater projector, that intensifies the light in a direction, and it has a hot spot, like you can pass through it, you can see it on the floor. It is very convincingly the sun shining through the skylight,
Right.
And then it has other lights that illuminate, that give the halo effect and all that. But it is an intense light. It's very convincing. It's not inexpensive.
Right.
It's not in every.
Of course. I mean, that's a unique situation, but you can, and we'll go back in a minute of how you can actually set up your entire house to do so this. But I know this particular individual is up at 1, 2 a.m. in the morning,
exactly.
working, in an Asian market, if you will, so that he has to, I'd heard, to mimic those feelings. So it's just incredible technology.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by NRD Landscaping. They are just a tremendous company. They are located off of 101 and Highway 7 in the western side of Minneapolis. Met Eric and his team about 5-6 years ago and have just been absolutely blown away at their design capabilities, their value, and they're just a trusted partner that we introduce to every client that we build our custom homes with. So if you have a small project, a large project, if you're an architect looking to bring in a landscaper, I highly recommend Eric over at NRD Landscaping. You can check him out on his Instagram handle, NRD Landscape, or online at nrdlandscape.com.
How, I mean, would you ever have to wear sunglasses, or is there UV issues you have to worry about?
Probably wouldn't want to sit right in the beam, just like you would in the real sun. Like,
really?
Yeah, if you were in the beam path, you'd be oppressed by the light. I would say it's that intense.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, so is the sun. So
that company that developed that, what was their? I mean, I assume they didn't develop that light fixture for this person.
No.
Or,
yeah,
is it this common that people are? I mean, how do they develop this?
It's a product that's been around. I've known about it for a fistful of years, and you look for opportunities to because it's not an everyday product,
right?
So hopefully, like cost-wise, it becomes more feasible in the future here for more common usage, and there'll be other technologies too that will mimic it, in a different way. I mean, the projector is a super costly way to produce that light intensity in a directional form, but it also is very costly from a square footage space. Like that thing is 4 feet deep or 3 feet deep or something like that.
To generate all that power and all the heat.
Yeah, because the projector's got to be at an angle, like facing downward. So, it's tilted. So the box is pretty
Did you
big.
see that? No, I know we have the International Builder Show coming up in January. Do they have a lighting expo that you see these types of products? How did you even find out about this product?
I don't know where I first heard about it. But Chicago has a big lighting fair. I can't remember the name of it. It just might be the Chicago Lighting Fair.
Okay.
But yeah, that's one where it's all about lights.
Interesting.
Like whole show floor.
Right. Going back to, just because it's something that's more relatable to our clientele, let's talk a little bit about pricing for those that are listening. And, obviously our electricians are more familiar with this as well, but, the temperature settings of your lighting. give us kind of a good, better, best scenario. Like a recess can, costs probably $130, and it's LED, a little bit of dimmer, but not a whole lot of temperature changes, if you will. Walk us up, like how do you get to the point where you have this control system? Because it sounds great. I know it's not inexpensive, but to have your circadian rhythm matched throughout the day, this lighting, like how does one go about designing it, and what does something like this even cost?
Yeah, there's varying degrees of it, and like in the simplest form, we're putting in a high quality LED light that's got an accurate Kelvin for the room that you're in. So like, if it's in a bedroom, we might want more warmer temperature. If it's in a kitchen, we might want something a little cooler, closer to daylight, just so colors are represented accurately. And that's not a lot different. It's just a high quality LED version of what we're used to using every day. And then from there, you can do kind of a warm dim. Are you familiar with that at all? Like a warm dim fixture. So it's an LED, and the thing about LEDs that we lost with moving from incandescent was you don't get that warmer tones as you dim the lights.
It turns kind of blue.
Yeah, or it looks blue to you, but it's staying the same Kelvin as you dim.
I see.
And it just feels unnatural. We're used to, dimming down to candle color, right? So then we take that simple LED fixture and we add warm dim to it. And then as you dim the light down, it will get warmer and temperature kind of more setting a comfortable mood. So that's more of a mechanical way of achieving, mimicking what we're used to with incandescent lamps. And then from there, you start to get into what we would call like tunable white. And tunable white means it doesn't matter if I dim it, I can still control what Kelvin white is coming out of it. So if the mood calls for, dinner time when I'm actually eating, maybe I want it to be a little bit more warm in the room. But while I'm preparing food, it's, again, more task, and it's more close to daylight type. So we can control our lamps that way. So that's our third step of LED. And then the fourth would be what we would call full spectrum. And so full spectrum is like tunable white, except for we can add color to it now too. So you can literally change entertainment rooms theme by going purple for the Vikings if you want to. Any color you can imagine, and that would be full spectrum. And once we have that full spectrum, all that color palette, we can kind of saturate color better within the space. So there's something called vibrancy mode on one of the products that we use. So if it's a art light and there's a piece of art on the wall and we're illuminating it with this full spectrum LED light, we can click it into vibrancy mode and it really enhances the colors. Like the art, when we shift from normal light to an enhanced light, like you can see the art jump off the paper.
Yeah.
So much more saturation. It looks really cool. And like we've had requests to, I want to see what this painting looked like when the artist painted it.
Oh,
so like
wow.
you could, if we knew where on the earth that was painted and the time of day it was painted, we can illuminate it with the same color of light, which I think is kind of cool.
Oh, that's very cool. Interesting. How often are clients educated on this before they meet with you? And one thing, just because so many of the people listening to this will be in the trades or involved with the building business side, I'd be curious to know, like, obviously as a builder, I know how electricians and low voltage, play together. But now you add in an architect, you add in a client. Walk me through a little bit the dynamic of how a system like this goes. Like, where does I know they're blended, but the cans that are being spec'd, are they coming from you? Are they being directed by you? Walk us a little bit of how this would integrate well in a custom home.
Yeah, and it's there's a lot of education that has to happen. It's a fairly new category, I would say, so we have to talk about it a lot to educate our clients. And right now it's kind of blended. In-house we have Kristen, one of my partners, who is certified in lighting design, several certifications, and can provide the lighting layouts and designs herself. Sometimes it comes from architecture, the architects. Sometimes it comes from a lighting designer. And either way, we can not only like execute the schedule of fixtures, we can control them too. We often are just kind of tied into all of it. You know what I mean? Like
I do. The actual, so let's say the electrician. So who's installing? So you have a light fixture. Traditionally, when I send a plan out for bid, let's say you're building a $2 million custom home, and maybe I'll have a $50,000 electric bid, and that'll include all the light fixture hanging, not the actual fixtures itself. It'll include all the wiring, all the cans, and then maybe on a home like that, I'll have $30,000 to $40,000 for an allowance. If I've never met the client has never met the low voltage guy, just as kind of like a placeholder, if you will. They'll sit down, you'll design the system for them. At that point, when does the electrician and when does the low voltage guy start working back and forth so that both are being heard in how it's happening?
Yeah. I mean, I always say like the sooner the low voltage guy selfishly can be introduced to the client,
right?
The honestly is the best solution, because there is so many things that can kind of change some of the design and how we work with people. But so the sooner the better. But if we're meeting the electrician and after the homeowner relatively early in the process before either one of us have done any pre-wire work, that's ideal, with ample time for the client to kind of marinate with some of the decisions that they have, before they feel the pressure to make one, before pre-wire, before we're wiring up a house, like what are we putting in this? Because sometimes it gets a little tight, and we can sense the client's, feeling pressure to make a decision. And sometimes when we don't make the best decisions, we're under pressure. But so yeah, the sooner the better. And then, the fixtures themselves, some of the more simple ones are simply inserts on the Juno or Halo cans that might be going in there. In which case the electrician, aka Sparky, can put like wire the house up traditionally, and we're just providing a different fixture for the insert. But other times, it's a little more sophisticated, where literally both of us have to touch both of those or the same fixture. So there's high voltage coming into that fixture, and there's also a low voltage tie in some cases too. So there's a lot of hand in hand that happens between us and the electrician. So ideally the electricians play nice with the low voltage guys and vice versa. And we tend to have a pretty good relationships with our electricians, because there is so much interaction, and a lot of that comes from our documentation, like trying to make their lives easier. So when we do a lighting control panel, like we're providing the electrician with exactly where he needs to plug in all his wires, so he doesn't have to think about a whole lot. He can put a guy in front of it and knock it out. At
the end of rough-in, before we insulate and sheetrock, are you guys videoing? Are you photographing, or all your wires are? Just recently, there's a builder that I network with and follow, and they actually hire a company, Matterport,
and they'll
Matterport the whole thing.
Yeah.
What do you guys? How do you document all your work?
We do it more kind of manual brute force, and take photos of all of our rough-in locations, and then just use simple like markup tools to let us know physically measured where they are, if we need to recover any of them. But like that Matterport's a pretty awesome product. So like it's a nice complementing addition to, I think, builders doing. I think it's a smart thing to do.
Are builders in our market doing that already?
Yeah. I think there's a couple of them that are.
And they just share that document with you?
Yeah, we have access to it. I mean, I think the homeowner is, it's an add-on to the homeowner, I think, at least at the level that I've seen. And then at any given time, the unforeseen, like, we want to run a wire up this wall. Is there a water pipe in it? Is there HVAC? I mean, some of that stuff is easy to figure out, but other times it's not.
The reason I ask is we've looked into potentially doing it on every home, but it's also expensive.
Yeah.
But it's a built-in cost. It's no different. I mean, so ultimately the client on a cost-plus contract, or fixed bid too, for that matter. I mean, it is the cost of building you a high-quality home.
And do they have different levels of that, or is it kind of like
I've done most of them for the end. I am just looking into now what it would be if we did rough-in only.
Okay.
And so I think that's more advantageous to all the subcontractors. We'd posted on our drives of, Builder Trend or, excuse me.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool.
I just think it'd be really handy.
Yeah, for sure.
And I also think it's very professional. I think when you're trying to win a big client or you're trying to demonstrate, it's always evolving.
Right.
I
think it adds value even to a future homeowner too. Can you imagine
100%.
like if you're buying a house that's 10 or more years old and you have literally a map of the bones of that house?
So I have a question for you, and then I want to talk to you more about, we did a pretty deep dive on lighting, which is really interesting to me, but just for those listening, a big part of the podcast is just understanding how people run businesses. And one thing I love about business is that regardless if you're manufacturing pens, building homes, building shoes, or having a low voltage company, there are maybe 60-70% of all businesses have commonalities, people, orchestra. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but pulling back for a minute. So we'll have to edit this. I can't remember what my question was. Well, what were you just talking about a minute ago? Yeah,
the Matterport.
Yeah, the Matterport. Well, shoot.
The house, second sale of the house, or not the original owner of the house.
Yeah, it was something like that. Well, that part will just get cut out. I guess we'll just talk about business. There was a question. It'll come back to me maybe. Let's just talk a little bit about running a business in general. So when you started, you'd kind of mentioned that, you had started, the client that you had originally worked for, was also an entrepreneur. Did you ever think you were going to own a business? And was it when you first started a business, how quickly did it grow, and where are you at now in terms of the number of people that you have working with you?
Yeah. I think I always had a desire to work for myself, and I think that comes from, watching my dad do it for multiple businesses. So I don't think it was that much of a stretch or a leap to get there.
Yep.
I'm not classically trained in business. I don't have an education in business or accounting or finances or anything that's applicable really to the business side of things. But I do think that gives an advantage too. Like I tend to look at things from fresh eyes when I was starting this thing, and sometimes it was highly stressful. Like, how do I do stuff? But also, maybe thinking outside the box, a little unorthodox, is kind of my style. Not just doing what felt right instead of doing what everyone else did or does. And some of the things that have come out of that, I wasn't even aware I was doing differently. And you may or may not know about like our VIP service promise to our clients, or the butler button that we have. Was really born it was born day one, but not even marketed until like 10 years after we did it. And it was, it's as simple as like our VIP service promise to our clients is, when our clients buy a system from us, we don't send them a bill for service like ever after the sale. So
wow,
that's
amazing.
If they spend $100,000 with us, it didn't seem right for me, 12 months later to send them a bill because their cable company changed the channel numbers of where their favorite channels were. So I just never did it. I never marketed it. I just thought, hey, this guy is a good client. Why would I send him a bill? It seems like a pain in the ass.
Massive dividends for you as a reputation. I'd be curious, as a user, blown away.
Yeah.
As a business owner, how do you? I mean, it's still time and money. You send a tech out there. How do you budget for that, or how do you? Do you roughly, you track your stuff, you backlog it and say, hey, I spend 100 hours a year. I have to build into my overall cost structure. I mean, I assume you have to get methodical about it. It probably didn't start that way. It started with the promise, and then you figured out how to produce it later.
Well, it was, our whole structure and DNA was always around that, mantra, but we didn't know it, like outwardly didn't know we were doing anything different. And then we start talking to peers at our peer events, and they're like, what? You're crazy. This is where we make the most money, is in service. And I'm like, we literally have no service revenue. The only revenue we have from service after the original sale of the house is if someone adds scope. If they add a TV, they add a speaker, of course, we're going to send you a bill for the TV that you added, but this ongoing service, we do not. And everyone always asks the question you did, like, how does it work? Like, how can you pay for that? And as a result, over time, we have spent a lot less on marketing. And I think it's because the word of mouth is so strong, we really bond a relationship with our clients where the cost to acquire a new one or to keep our clients is very low from a marketing standpoint. And so I look at our VIP service promise as our marketing budget, and it does cost us somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $300,000 of opportunity and profit loss every year to do that we're basically investing back into our clients opposed to taking more profit. Because it garners us more sales. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, and I didn't even know we were doing this for 10 years until I hire a sales guy from a competitor, and he's like, "Wait, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is what we do, VIP, you know." And he's like, "We should be shouting this on the top of, you know, every chance we get." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, let's brand this and like do something with it."
Do you know, is there any other industry within the building community that could do that? Like, for instance, a builder. I'm thinking about, you know, if I did something like that as a builder, you know, I actually, one of my project managers brought this up in the last year. We talked about, we're a small company, six people, and service and punch list stuff is always difficult. And It's like, for a small company, it's like, well, you know, do we get a guy in a Sprinter van, put him in $100,000 worth of equipment, and, you know, whenever there's a fire, we send him. But, you know, you have $100,000 of equipment plus, let's say, a $60,000 a year salary or whatever you have to pay this. Maybe it's more, you know, to have this kind of full-time service tech. So let's call it 160. You know, you look at what we spend a year on marketing, and then do you go long-term? Do you say, you know what, we're not going to do full-page ads. We're not going to do some of these other things, and we're just going to simply say our clients are going to be so impressed with how we service them that we don't actually need to do any marketing.
It's not just the budget for marketing. It's the presumably increase in revenue gained too. I mean,
there's some faith there. You're jumping off the diving board and hoping the pool is filled by the time you're done.
We definitely got lucky because we could start this when we were smaller, and see how it worked, knowingly or unknowingly. And it's morphed into like one of our biggest differentiators. I am
blown away. I did not know that. That's incredible.
And I mean, the other thing I would add is too, like when my peers hear about, one, that we do this, two, how do you do it? But the third question usually is, well, your service must not be as good as everyone else's.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So they're like, well, it's free. So they like, you know, like how can it be good? So people associate cheap with free, but again, because service was literally in our DNA from day one, like our service department is different from our peers too. We have dedicated service staff when oddly in our world, given how technology involved it is, a lot of our peers still utilize the installation technicians to execute their service. And they're conflicted, or they have to wait time, but they're conflicted because the original install guys, those guys are the revenue generators. They're the producers. And if you pull them away from generating revenue, now you got to take them into service to, you know, so they usually are taking a back seat. So we hear about service lengths and times of weeks to get stuff done from AV guys, and literally we do stuff in days or hours. And that sounds like a line, but like our service ticket software that we use tells us exactly how long we can close a ticket in. And it's, you know, we're hesitant to say faster than 48 hours, but the reality is in most cases it is.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. How often, give us, you know, people love stories. Do you have a story where you had a client that was blown away by this, that mentioned it to, you know, an architect or another big client, and they then in turn brought their builder and came back to you and said, hey, wow, you know, Lance and Admit One and their team, they're unbelievable. Look at what they do. You've got to use them. I mean, or does it happen more subtly?
I mean, I can't put my finger on a specific story, but I do think and know it happens more subtly, you know, organically too. And again, because we spend our budget on our clients instead of marketing, sometimes we can't be always loud about some of the stuff we're doing. And it is really more our style is just let our work speak for itself, let our service speak for itself. we really are playing the long game with our partners and our clients. Like, we're not in it to sell the one job and walk away from it.
I mean, I can tell you right now, not only on this podcast, but just in general, I mean, I'm going to tell this story to everybody. I mean, this is unbelievable. I can't wait after this interview is over to call the other builders I know outside of our state and be like, can you believe this? Like, this is incredible. I'm really impressed.
Yeah. And then to augment our actual service, we have, to simplify it, we call it, it's our butler button, but it's nothing more than an easy button, like from the old, was it Office Max or Office Depot days?
Yeah.
But it connects to the cellular network instead of Wi-Fi, but you literally push this button and it alerts half my team that the client XYZ has a service issue, and we pick up the phone and call them within minutes. It automatically generates a ticket for us too. It's a little bit tchotchke, but it really tells our clients how important service is. Like, yes, you can send us a text message. Yes, you can create a service ticket. Yes, you can call us, but we can put a button on your fridge where you can just walk up to it no matter when and press the button, and it'll at least get your ticket logged and generated and a phone call to find out what's going on and see if we can't help you immediately or set up a call to take care of it, in a future.
Because I assume a lot of this stuff, I mean, I have to imagine that, just because I know from experience having dealt with it, it's like throw the breaker, replace the batteries. I mean, a lot of this stuff can be done on the phone.
Yeah.
If it's a hardware issue, obviously you got to go out, and not saying that everything is trivial, but a lot of times these homes are very complex.
Right.
But sometimes it could be a very simple answer. So you're able to solve it probably pretty quickly, even if it's a phone call.
And then technology's changed a lot, in the, where we have smart outlets where we can remotely reboot stuff so the client doesn't even have to take care of it, or auto reboot things. Like if it detects that the internet's down, it can automatically reboot the modem or the router on the system. Stuff like that is made. We have a lot more tools these days to assist in service. So it's kind of a fun time to be working.
And at night, there's like a bat signal in the air of AO.
Yeah.
So, I think that's pretty cool.
There's a parody that we were working on, literally.
Yeah.
Like Super Tech with an AO on their chest type of deal.
I think that's pretty lit. I love that. How, sorry, I've got this cold, makes my voice all interesting. But walk me through owning a company. So you've recently taken on some partners.
Yeah.
What led to that, and where do you see the company kind of going?
Yeah, I mean, my original partner, brother-in-law, who helped me get started, was really more on the silent side of things. He certainly was a mentor and helped me help foster this business. But I think the last couple years, I don't know if you shared this experience too, or what your corporate structure looks like, but sometimes it's nice to have someone in the trenches or the foxhole with you, and I think I've always had a desire to have real, true teammates in my business, and that were with me every day. And so I identified some people that have been super loyal to me in this business, and asked them to be part of it, and integral partners. And I think what that does, I'm my biggest limiting factor, like in terms of business, like I limit the business, how much I can take on or how much I'm willing to take on. And not only has this kind of freed up my mind to be more a visionary instead of stuck in the mechanics of the business, it gives the horsepower and the desire to grow it. Now I have more motivation to grow this business than I ever did. Like I could admit one could stay the size that it is, 20 some employees, and do well and be proud of what's been created. But now with 3 more partners, I'm more motivated than ever to grow this thing, because that's what they want too. And I'm like, all right, this is time for the new generation.
And it can kind of take the shackles off of you, because as you point, now you can work on the business a lot more.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. And out of curiosity, why 2, 3, 4? Like, how'd you decide on how many partners to make?
Yeah, I don't think it was a quantitative thing. It was more just identifying who my people were that have invested into this business, in terms of time as much as I have, or integral in the future of the business. And so I think it was an easy decision that way to find out who included. And I'm completely open to including more down the road too.
Right.
So it's not really I would love this someday to be more employee owned, I think.
How cool would that be?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's how one avenue you can take to really make a business shine and it's a mentality that I've always had no matter who I worked for. I was a company, quote unquote, company guy. Like I always thought about profit and the quality of the work and all of it. And I didn't realize that not everyone does, employee wise. Like I was a little different that way. So it's just about identifying those people who are like-minded and then including them in it, because you can amplify all of it. Like they benefit from the success of this business. They already walked around like little owners. Like, why not make them official?
Right. Interesting. I'd love to talk with you more about that. Maybe I have to bring you on again for episodes 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, well, I've been working lots with attorneys, like the guy you just had.
Yeah. No, Stephen would be great on these limited partnerships.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people listening have small businesses, and I think the model and some of the aspirational vision that you have for the company is super empowering. You're empowering your people, and it also frees you to do what you do. I'm super inspired by it and makes me want to do some of these things as well. But yet, as a classic, type A personality, it's like, I think the hardest thing for myself to do and other people like me is like, let your people do what you hired them to do. Stop doing their jobs for them. They're better at it than you are.
Yes.
I'd heard recently that if you can find someone that can do your job to within 60% of your ability, you should hire that position out and move on to something else. Now, you don't want them to stay at 60%.
Right.
And when I hear that, I'm like, 60%, oh man, that's 40% not what I want.
Right.
But I think, the idea is simply that, you take a job leader or someone that is really good, and maybe that's not what you want to do as your business. Maybe you want to stay small because, there are people that they do it all and that's what they want to do. And that's great. For myself, my skill set, I joke with my clients and evidently they like this, but, I'm not super handy. I'm not on the job site framing or building cabinets. And so my strength really is in the conducting of the orchestra. It's assembling the team. It's, creating the vision. Yeah. And it's and really being a cheerleader, being a huge fan of not only what the homeowner wants, but we work with so many talented people like yourself, and I'm just blown away at the reason we even started this podcast is I just want to celebrate businesses that are successful.
That's cool.
And I think that anyone who's in business has done something right. And I love hearing stories that you have an idea, go for it. And, Stephen, who we had on in a previous podcast, obviously as a lawyer, you want to have stuff kind of buttoned up. And I probably tend to be more on the line of, you have an idea, just do it. I think more people create plans or talk about doing something and never do. I will often just, even if I don't have a fully thought out plan, you can't build a house this way, obviously. So don't worry, customers, if you're listening, I'm not just winging your house. But I think when you have an idea, like just do it, like just start, and I think by just doing that, you'll celebrate, you'll magnetize people around you to get whatever it is that you want done. And I'm sure you've had this happen to you as well, that all of a sudden now 5 more ideas came on. You're like, wow, I never would have thought of that. Right. Yeah, let's do that.
Right.
Like even like your buddy coming on, you didn't even know you were doing VIP service. I mean, you knew you were doing it, but like no one else really knew what that was.
Right.
And now the guy's like, wow, you need to tell everybody.
Right.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Outside of work, as we're closing up here, what do you do for hobbies and how do you stay engaged with your business? I know you've got a couple kids and you're an outdoor enthusiast.
For sure.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh man. Yeah. You got to have hobbies outside of work. I mean, this started like a lot of my peers, in this industry. This was our hobby. This is how it started, and then it turned into business. And so suddenly the hobby's not as interesting at home anymore. So you need other hobbies outside of what you do. And I think it just gives you a break from, and lets the passion kind of build for your business. So man, I'm into photography, mountain biking, of course, I'm obsessed with bikes, have too many, still looking for more.
Was that something even as a youth? Like when did that obsession happen?
Yeah, no, only as an adult. I think I was so entrenched in my business for so long. I missed out on some of that stuff, so I'm playing a little bit of makeup there, especially on the adventure side of things and travel. I didn't really make time as I should have for it then. So yeah, I would say the last 5 years I learned how to snowboard. I bought my first bike. Photography kind of started with the kids. I mean, the business was what started photography. I couldn't afford to have a photo guy come in and shoot my rooms at the time like $2,500 a day or something like that. So I just figured out how to start using a camera. Then I had kids, and that made it even easier to get behind the camera. And so now it's a fun hobby for me doing landscape stuff. It gives me purpose to travel.
Yeah. I'm always interested in this personally. I have 3 kids, and I have tons of extracurricular activities and hobbies that probably too many, because I'm not good at any of them. I'm just sort of good at all of them because I can't focus on one thing. I just like too many things. How, both business and personally, do you time block? How have you structured your day, your weeks, your months and years to really honor the things that are important to you? I think the reason I ask the question is I think every business owner, this is a thing that it evolves, it changes with their life as well. But I always love asking this question to see if someone has kind of a hack that has worked for them to employ in your own life. I
mean, I think as business owners, at least me, I feel guilty sometimes when I leave work, and giving myself permission. Knowing I'm healthier doing it, it's still hard to do. Like I'm still a healthier, better owner. Yes. If I give myself breaks and go do stuff, but it's still hard to do, even knowing that. Yeah. I don't have a hack to do it. I think I probably miss a fair amount of opportunities depending on how much my workload is. Right. But there is things that I do religiously every year. January I do this, and in the fall I go biking out west. I'm headed there in 2 weeks. Moab, and in the winter there's a ski trip. That sort of stuff. I don't let a lot get in the way of those those things. The kids trip, in the summer, taking them to Iceland next year. Love it. So that kind of stuff, those are the hard and fast. Can't let them get in the way.
We'll have to chat offline. We did our honeymoon in Iceland.
Oh, really?
Oh, I love it's amazing. It's only a 5-hour flight. A lot of people don't know that from Minneapolis. It's like $500. I mean, it's super easy to get to.
Direct flight.
We'll talk more about it because it's
incredible. Kristen and Andy, my partners,
that's right. They
got engaged out there.
Okay.
And now they're going back to get married.
Oh yeah, well there you go. You can talk to them. They'll know all the good stuff. But because you have 2 daughters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna love it. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing.
Do the van life, camper life thing.
Oh wow. How long are you going for?
I haven't booked it, the dates yet. They're out there for 10 days, and it'll either be the whole 10 days or a good chunk of it.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
Depends how long I can have my kids.
Right. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I was honored to have you on.
Yeah,
got a lot of cool things from here. And
awesome.
For anyone that's listening, where can our listeners find you?
admitonesystems.com.
Okay.
Lance. At admitonesystems.com.
All right, very good.
Give me a jingle.
We'll have everything in the show notes as well, so you can, if there's anything you like or want to repeat again, you can follow the show notes along, and we'll have everyone's websites and social handles there as well. Thanks again for coming on, Lance.
Right on.
All right, take care.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like what you listen to, please give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It really means a lot. It's a great way for us to just understand what you like about the podcast and what we can keep doing. So like and review, and please share with your friends and family. Find out more at curiousbuilderpodcast.com.